All right. A lot has happened since the last time you and I spoke, so I'm just going to jump right in. Within the last day or so, down in the southern part of Ukraine, there was a dam called the Nova Kakhovka Dam. Ukraine is accusing Russia of blowing up the dam. It's caused tremendous amounts of damage. Citizens are fleeing for their life. Livestock is drowning. It's an ugly situation. However, Russia is accusing Ukraine of blowing up the dam. Can you give us any insight to what's going on with this situation? And do you have any suspicion about who is really behind the exploding of this water infrastructure, this dam in South Ukraine?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that this is a horrific event, and it's going to impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. It's not going to be reversed for some time, meaning that the damage that's being done is near to permanent as it's going to get. This is changing in a dramatic fashion the lives and the livelihood of millions of people. There will be an ecological impact too on not just the river, but also the Black Sea. And so this is a catastrophe, not just a minor little incident. This is a very, very big deal. Who did it? One of the key questions that people ask in the legal profession when something of this nature occurs is the concept of a cui bono. Who benefits? Who benefits the most from this? There's no benefit for Russia whatsoever. This flooding is primarily impacting what they call the left bank of the Dnieper River. That's where the Russians had built fortifications. They had extensive minefields, they had entrenchments, et cetera. Those are all flooded. They're gone. So why would Russia build a network of defenses only to flood it out? Two, the Russians were using the reservoir that was north of the dam as a water barrier to hold the Ukrainians back. By blowing up the dam, you're draining this barrier, making it actually easier for the Ukrainians to cross the river. And when you use the water as a barrier, that means that you've incorporated that into your defensive plan. And by eliminating that barrier, it means the potential for Russia's defenses in that area being inadequate to the task of defending against a concerted Ukrainian attack is real. So Russia doesn't benefit from this militarily. From standpoint of the economy, two things. One, this will severely impact water supplies to the Crimea Peninsula. The Crimea Peninsula operates on a canal that's fed by the river, and the disruption of the flow of this river will impact that. So it's going to severely reduce the amount of water available to the Crimea. And this is after Russia made a point of reopening this canal and getting the water flowing back in. So again, that's Russia shooting itself in the foot for doing this. It also will have a potential detrimental impact on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. When Russia is in the business of trying to convince the world that this plant is safe, that continued operation under Russian control is in the best interest of the world, why would it create the conditions that allows the world to question the safety of this plant? Now, everything I just said means that it is Ukraine that benefits the most from this conflict. And there's an additional aspect to this. There's a lot of Ukraine fatigue right now. The world is just tired of Ukraine, tired of funding Ukraine. There's been talk about this counteroffensive. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's not going to succeed, and the world knows it's not going to succeed. Ukraine knows it's not going to succeed. So what Ukraine needs is a catastrophic event that rallies international support around Ukraine by blaming Russia for something big. And already Ukraine is talking about taking this issue to the Security Council of the United Nations and using it as a mechanism to get more sanctions imposed on Russia. So politically, it's Ukraine that's benefiting the most from this. And lastly is the direct forensic evidence. Ukraine has been shelling this dam, striking it with multiple launch rocket systems, HIMARS, the American-provided HIMARS system, for months now. It's not Russia attacking the dam. It's been Ukraine attacking the dam. And it was a Ukrainian general who last year said, we need to practice destroying this dam. because there could come a time when it's in our benefit to destroy this dam. And they actually tested out by firing HIMARS rockets against it. And the conclusion he reached was, yes, we can destroy this dam anytime we want to. Russia actually warned the world about this potential back in October when they published a letter at the Security Council of the United Nations. So I think if we take politics aside, all the political statements, we just look at the direct evidence and who benefits. It's clear that Ukraine is the culprit. They benefit from this the most. They're the only ones who have practiced taking out the dam publicly. They've acknowledged this, and they're the only ones who've been attacking the dam on a regular basis. So Ukraine did this. Whether the United States is going to come to that conclusion, whether the international community will come to that conclusion is another question. But there's no doubt in my mind that Ukraine is behind this attack.
Well, and it is considered a Russian-occupied area, right? So Russia has gone to great lengths to free their own citizens within Ukraine. Why would they then attack their own Russian-occupied area, which downstream would damage them in multiple locations? It doesn't make sense. And again, the media is going back and forth. It's such a new story, but they do seem to want to, as you mentioned, turn this into an international crime very, very quickly without any fingerprints or evidence or anything like that. One of the articles that I read this morning said that, there will be an investigation from Ukraine and the international community, but already this is being labeled as terrorism and eco-terrorism. Do you think that they're elevating it to that level of language, again, to rally the international community to Ukraine's side?
Well, first of all, let's just be straight up. It is an act of terrorism, and it is an act of eco-terrorism. Whoever's responsible for this can rightly be labeled a terrorist entity that has committed eco-terrorism. So there's nothing wrong with those terms. The problem is they're using them they're applying them on Russia when it's Ukraine that did this. And they need to be careful about applying these terms. Beware of what you ask for, because a careful forensic investigation will probably point the finger straight at Ukraine. So you're going to see people talking about the need for an investigation, but there will be no investigation. Just like, for instance, there's been no investigation of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline explosion. Why? Because they don't want to know the answer, because they know the answer. They know who did it. America knows who did it. We did it. So we don't want an investigation that proves that. We prefer to leave it unknown so that we can then shape the narrative by putting out false accusations against Russia. And I think that's what you're going to see with this dam. They're going to elevate the language. They're going to create the perception of terrorism and eco-terrorism, and then they're going to apply that to Russia. They're going to go through the motions of talking about an investigation in order to promulgate the notion of legitimacy of these accusations, but there will be no investigation, because an investigation will uncover things that they don't want uncovered.
Yeah, and that's the point I was trying to make is, again, I'm comfortable with this being terrorism. I mean, look how many hundreds of thousands of people it's going to affect. I mean, this is greater than hitting an apartment building with, a sonic missile or a hypersonic missile. This is like very, very damaging to the landscape, to the people, to the culture. My worry, though, is that there won't be a legitimate investigation. It will be, hey, we have the crime, now go find the person, versus really finding out who did that. And I agree that's what's happening, I believe, with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Let me bring up something that came out in the news today, and maybe we can just kind of pick this story apart. I read in Reuters that the CIA has now come forward and said that they know who attacked the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, that it was a 6-man SEAL team from the Ukrainian Special Forces that blew it up. Now, the Daily Mail says the CIA is saying that, but really what the CIA is trying to cover up is the fact that within the leaked Pentagon papers from Jack Teixeira, it says in that the United States knew 3 months in advance about the detonation of this by Ukraine. But here's the whole point of all of this is whether the United States did this or whether the CIA or these Pentagon papers show that it was indeed a team from Ukraine. Why would the United States stand by idle and allow a partner and a NATO nation of Germany to be economically damaged, financially damaged, physically damaged in order to benefit Ukraine, who isn't a part of NATO, who doesn't really have a relationship with the United States? Why in either scenario was the United States so willing to throw Germany under the bus?
Well, first of all, the notion that Germany is this close ally of the United States is a wrong notion. Remember under the Obama administration, it was exposed that we were tapping into the phones of Angela Merkel, the chancellor of Germany. We were spying on her personal phone calls. Do friends do that? No. Also understand that we have been at odds with Germany over their energy policy vis-a-vis the Soviet Union and then later Russia since the 1960s, 1970s. We've been telling Germany, West Germany, and then unified Germany, you don't want to become over-reliant upon Russian energy. And so Germany's insistence on gaining access to cheap Russian oil, cheap Russian gas has been problematic from an American standpoint. And we've been talking about shutting down these pipelines for some time now. Senator Ted Cruz has led the charge in the Senate to bring this about. And it was Joe Biden himself back in early this year, I guess, said with Olaf Scholz right there in front of him that if the Russians, he said it in 2022, if the Russians make a move on Ukraine, we will shut down the pipeline. It will cease to exist. That's a confession right there.